Awesome, awesome. So, welcome back, everybody, to our second session of the AI Enhanced Entrepreneur. In today's session, it's going to be an exciting one. We're got a lot to cover in the next little bit. I don't want to spoil everything, but just to reintroduce, my name is Hank Barker. I'm joined today by Launch Lenaway or Benjamin Tarzwell.
Yeah, I know. I've got an interesting name today, but I usually go by Ben.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's hop in a little bit, but let me control the screen for a second. So
You
this
got it.
is the second day of our three weeks or 3 day series, basically. In the first session, we covered a lot of the basics, a lot of ChatGPT, getting used to the tools, how is it going to fit into your business, all that. And in today's session, we're getting a lot more into some more higher level things and just really exploring more opportunities out there when it comes to using AI.
Yes,
So let me
absolutely.
keep going here. So here's a quick overview of what we're getting into today. We're going to do a little bit of a welcome and a warm up. We're then I'm going to hand things over to Ben. He's going to do an ethical deep dive. He's got some very interesting stuff to cover when it comes to AI and AI image generation and things of that nature. We're then
Looking
going
forward
to
to it.
go over ChatGPT, some of the higher level opportunities that we briefly touched on last time, but didn't really get to fully delve into. Then we're going to discover what else is out there. What other tools can we look into and try to play with? And then from there, we're going to have our main activity. Since this is a pre-recorded video, at any point we have something like this, what I'd recommend is to, and I'll tell you when it's that time, but pause the video and then take some time to do the activity, and then we'll continue on from there. And then lastly, we'll do a little bit of a wrap up, kind of just preparing for what's our homework for the next week, going into the next and final session, which is learning a little bit about automations, but not to spoil everything there.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add before I get into the core outcomes of what we're getting into today?
Yeah, I would like to address a little bit of the elephant in the room just because we're recording this rather than hosting it live, and it's just a little bit of an error on the scheduling. It's also a different format. You guys are much
Yeah.
more used to meeting up in person, so who's expecting this? It's totally what it is, and we're rocking with it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that is
I
all I
love it.
wanted to address.
Awesome. Okay. So for today's core outcomes, just to kind of rephrase as to what we're going to be doing today, we have four primary core outcomes. We're going to learn the ins and outs of the ethics on AI and the impact it will have on the user. We're then going to have expansion, which is discovering some other AI tools out there beyond just ChatGPT, and then learn a little bit of how they can fit into your business. We also have a process that we're going to introduce you to. Then we're going to learn about personalization. This is how to set up ChatGPT through custom instructions, projects, and GPTs, all the like next steps type of thing when it comes to ChatGPT. And then lastly, it's future readiness. This is going to be where the goal by the end of the session is to establish one new tool that you're looking to approach, and then some potential ideas for automations to grow your business. Now, I say ideas because we're not going to be touching it as much, but the idea is to start getting your mind wrapped around, all right, well, how could AI start to automate some of these parts of my day? How could I get some time back in my day to really just, make my life easier, basically?
Hmm.
So from there, we're just going to take a quick moment to recap. Nothing crazy. So last week we covered what AI is and what it isn't. We also covered why it's important to you. I mean, primarily the biggest reason is that it is a non-negotiable nowadays. It's going to make your life so much easier and so much better because you're already having to
Hmm.
wear so many hats. So wholeheartedly recommend these tools to you. We also covered the basics of data safety with AI. Some of the big things there is to make sure you know what you're uploading into these tools. Be careful with what you're doing to protect yourself and your clients. We walked through ChatGPT as a platform, a lot of the basics, a lot of some of the features as well within them. We're going to do a little bit more of the higher level features, like I mentioned today, and then an introduction to prompting with a couple of activities at the end. Big thing with the introduction to prompting was clarity is king, and think of it like a really smart intern, really smart individual, but they lack the context of the situation. So provide as much context as possible. And what the AI is and isn't, that was just simply saying, hey, these AI tools or the AI is kind of like in a way, it kind of has a brain similar to ours, but they think more like in patterns. And it's kind of like Ben, I know we mentioned this before, like autocomplete on steroids is a great way to
Yeah.
to kind of just determine what they are.
Yeah, these models are just very, very good at predicting things. And I mentioned that because I'm going to be mentioning that in just a second.
Exactly. So last week we had an awesome time kind of getting everybody comfortable with the idea of using these tools in the workplace. So what I want you to do now is just pause for a second and think about, all right, since last week, and this might even be 2 weeks from now, because there's a chance that we redo this session again next week with everybody. With that being said, just think about how did the last week go in experimenting with using these tools and playing around with them more? And did you discover any other new tools that you'd potentially look to use? I think that's a big one, and that's one of our other pieces of homework that I'm going to get into again. But it's
Hey, hey,
right now, it's a lot about exploring.
I
What's
am
up,
so
Ben?
sorry to interrupt you. Is the thing still performing how it's supposed to? The
Mm-hmm.
window?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I managed to shut off my second monitor and now like the whole system's weird on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Is it all right if I pause you there and then maybe we restart, maybe we like cut what this is out?
You can just pause it. You don't have to cancel. There's a pause button.
Okay. Whoops. All right, sorry
Awesome.
about that.
We're back. No worries, Ben. No worries at all. So, like I said, just identify, how did the last week go for you? Kind of reflect on what went good, what went bad, and kind of just keep that in mind because as we grow our experience with these tools, we need time to reflect and identify, all right, well, what worked, what didn't work? How am I using these tools? Is it for good? Is it for bad? Meaning, is it taking up more time than it's actually giving me back? So keep those things in
Mhm.
mind as we continue to go forward, especially when we look to add in new tools. But besides that, we got the intro out of the way. I'm going to hand things over to Ben, and he is going to talk through all of the ethical considerations you need to keep in mind as a business owner looking to use AI and just over ethics in general when it comes to AI as well.
Yeah, ethics is actually a pretty intense topic when it comes to AI, and it's for a multitude of reasons. You could probably create a thesis statement on each of these topics alone, but we are totally going to be boiling this down to the basic arguments and the basic things to look out for, especially while you responsibly use these tools. So,
Mhm.
without further ado, we're going to touch on the very first um, kind of issue that arises with AI and the ethics side of things, and that is biases. So, cutting back to that mention I had of how these tools they predict what we're looking for, that ends up being a lot of why they're such good tools, but it also ends up being the source of a lot of their issues. So when we are making these tools, or we'll call them transformers, there's these models, right, making AI,
Mhm.
we feed them tons and tons of data. And that's well and good. That's what prepares them for any of the questions we have to throw at them. But it also means that whatever that data says is all that the AI knows. And the issue arises is if that data ends up perpetuating a bias, such as stuff like hiring data. I mean, that might be the most hot button, well understood case of AI perpetuating biases. But if we look at hiring data, a lot of hiring data, at least in the past, has been built with a bias in mind. There's a lot of an idea of who we're looking for when we're trying to hire people. So when these algorithms are trying to specifically focusing on hiring, are trying to hire new people, they'll look at what went well last time or what the success stories were and try to look for more of those. Well, it turns out that those success stories end up being biased individuals, or at least
Mhm.
the stereotypes surrounding those hiring decisions end up being biased. So we see this
Yeah.
also as well in a lot of other areas, such as right here. We have an image generation. We asked specifically Microsoft Bing, so this is a DALI 3 generation, hey, give us a doctor. And lo and behold, we get some images of doctors. But this might not really ring any alarm bells right automatically. However, notice that every single example we were given is one, a man, two, with glasses, and three, all of a fairer complexion or a lighter complexion. all of these are biases, and these all have been perpetuated and presented to us by the AI. And
Mhm.
to no fault of its own, it's the data that it was trained on. But it can go so far as to also cause other things when it is perpetuating what it has been trained on, or perhaps when people try to correct these biases that are found in the data. It can lead to other things like inaccuracies that can be historical, political, factual, any of these. All of these are inaccuracies, and oftentimes a lot of these are all forms of hallucinations, which is a word that we have heard commonly used with AI. It's hallucinating this, it's make sure it doesn't hallucinate, all that kind of stuff. And that is for good reason. These tools, because they just predict what we're looking for, and they're programmed with an intent to be helpful and to be um, confident presenters of information. I don't think ChatGPT would nearly be as popular if people were getting responses that say, "Hey, I think this is right. Hey, it might be this. Hey, it might be that." It would definitely not be as near a popular tool. So instead, it's confident with anything it says. And if what you ask it doesn't exactly meet the information that it's trained on, it will either try to infer something from the data that it has, or it will completely fabricate something. And because it's trained to be confident, it will present it as though it is real. This is where we get those stories of lawyers using AI to create case studies and then not really checking anything, presenting it in court, and being disbarred. Other
Yep.
things of that nature. So, to reference the image that we have on screen here, this is a form of hallucination. We asked for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And to touch on the point I had made earlier in relation to trying to counteract biases that these models might portray, it was it ends up skewing results in a different way. So rather than perpetuate a bias, now it is spreading misinformation or inaccuracy. So this is an example of the custom instructions of these tools, which we are also going to touch on in a little bit, being told to not be biased, and in doing so presents inaccuracies as truth. This is the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but we have kids here and we have a woman in the background. Famously, it's an all-male convention, so this is inaccurate. Well, when it comes to biases and inaccuracies, it sounds like these tools suck. It sounds like they're going to only do bad things. Well, that's not the case. These tools, I would say 99.8% of the time, perform perfectly as intended. But these things do slip through the cracks. So we have to keep an eye out and always ask for sources. If there's anything to learn about the unfortunate lawyer who had lost their license from being a little too gung-ho, reckless with the tools, is you always double check any output for bias or false information. Even a quick once-over. If something catches your eye, you might as well look into it, because the potential risk that you run by not can be pretty great, especially as a business owner representing your brand, representing who you are, etc.
Yeah,
So
I think
moving on.
Ben touching on that, I want to kind of
Yeah.
rephrase. I think it's interesting from a business owner's perspective. They can be, this can be a little wary. It can be a little interesting because you're
Mhm.
like, oh, well, is AI inaccurate? It's not that the AI is always inaccurate. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
99% of the time it's fairly accurate, and it's going to give you exactly what you're looking for. We're just wanting to emphasize this because it can happen. These things can happen, and if you use the tools enough, you will notice that this happens. And that's
Mhm.
why, for us, such a benefit to mention it to you guys so you understand that
Mhm.
these risks are there. This isn't all meant to be a doom and a gloom type of thing. It's just meant to be like, hey, recognize that, especially like just like the internet's biased, these tools are biased.
Yeah, and we aren't doing our jobs properly if we're not informing you of all facets of these tools.
Exactly.
Again, it's not magic, it's AI. But
Hmm.
to move forward from that point, thank you for adding that, Hank. We're going to touch
Hmm.
on another ethical consideration, which is using AI for art generation. This might not really pick your ear unless you run in certain spaces, but this is actually a pretty big point of contention for I would wager a fairly large size of the population,
Hmm.
artists and creatives alike, etc. But what is the deal with that? So AI art generation, we've really only touched on AI chatbots in our first session, but there are plenty of other things that these AI chatbots can do. They can generate image, video, voice, and music as well. And all these models don't use the same techniques per se, but they all do perform well at creating these um,
Hmm.
recreations of these mediums. So just to put some ideas in your head of what this could look like, the first category I'd mentioned, image, are things like Bing Image Creator, Midjourney, or as I mentioned earlier, DALL-E, which is ChatGPT, OpenAI's model. For video, there's things like Google VO3, which is recently released, and Runway has been a long-standing
Yeah.
kind of
Google
champion in
VO3
that
I mentioned
arena.
last time. That was the one that could generate images of Bigfoot running around saying dumb stuff. That's what VO3 is.
Yeah, that's what VO3. So you've definitely seen some VO stuff if you go anywhere near social media.
Mhm.
Another area I'd mentioned is voice, things like 11 Labs and Speechify. If you don't really know what these are, they're cool tools. I would say based on where you sit as a person, if you're more anxious, could be um, scrap that. You know what? I think they're cool tools. We're going to touch
Yeah.
on why certain things should be considered in a second. But next is music, which is Suno and Udio, and we're actually going to show you Suno here later. But those are just some tools that you might have heard of that are examples of these mediums that AI is able to participate in. But
Mhm.
real quick, there's an ethical dilemma here. So most of these models, whether they're text-based, image-based, other thing like that, were trained with stolen material or material that hasn't been given explicit consent for its use with AI. That is our first major ethical dilemma here. I hear your brain. You're trying to guess what you're thinking. So who cares? Why do I care? I am using it to save time. That is between my AI model creators and the artists being stolen from, or I didn't care. I can't choose what the data is that these tools use. And we hear you, and we're not expecting you guys to seek out the proper data set to use with your own pre-trained transformer chat
Mhm.
GBT that you've made. But it
Exactly.
is important to know where AI sits, at least in the minds of most US adults. So I'm not going to read these stats out. This is from a study from April of this year, 2025. But just getting an eyeball of these numbers, there's really only about 17%, 20-ish% of the population that thinks positively of AI. There's a lot of uncertainty and negativity in the space. And furthermore, when these same US adults were asked if they believe AI will benefit them or harm them, it's looking like a quarter of people are looking to what AI can do for them, whereas 75 to 80% are not really very excited of what the space consists of, either due to lack of information or just due to headlines you hear, because this stuff is like magic in a lot of people's minds.
Mhm.
There's a lot of vitriol in the space.
Yeah, a lot of
But
people, I mean, when it comes to like the tools in general, all they see is what they see on the news, and then they hear of these extreme stories one way or another, and
like the lawyer,
that's where it can exactly like the lawyer, that's where people's minds can be a little like, oh, this is scary. And you know,
oh, um, I think finishing out what Hank had to say is that these tools can be scary, but
confident with the idea
we
of
are
using
not.
them, get comfortable with them.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Hank, you
you're
cut
just
out a
good
little
here?
bit.
Oh, there we go. That was me. No, you're good. Keep going.
I don't think we caught that on the recording.
That's good. I didn't say anything. I was just saying, continue. 'Cause I was like, I was thought you lagged, and it was actually me lagging.
Okay, got you. Well, to finish out what that point was, though, is there's a lot of kind of uncertainty in the space, and we bring this up just because you as a business owner are responsible for your business, your well-being, as well as the brand that's around that. And that is important to note because there's certain decisions that could be made that we'll touch on that could go over well or be considered distasteful, etc., when it takes to utilizing AI within your business. So, based on those numbers, I should just avoid using AI for any sort of art generation. Otherwise, my business will explode. Not necessarily. No, it won't. It will not destroy your business in any way, but it can lead to some negligent side effects, I would say. But truly, the power is in your hands. As it stands, these tools are free to use and free to take advantage of to your heart's content. There's really not much when it comes to copyright, other than, say, if you were to try to copyright work by AI, you yourself have to add something to it, whether it's editing an image, adding a little bit to a video, something. It has to touch human hands at least a little bit to be considered your copyright. But other than that, the world is your oyster. We just mentioned this, that you should examine your audience and you should weigh the risks of using AI. And I say there are risks, but it's really in only certain instances and certain industries. Say, for example, Brian, if you're seeing this, your company is an excavation company. We'll boil it down to construction, right? Most people you work with probably wouldn't care at all if you were to use AI. They would say, okay, what is that? I don't really care. Is my driveway or is my everything, is it going to look right? That's really all they care about. Whereas, say if you are somebody like Heidi, right? You're going into a wellness industry. Well, there's an awful lot of headlines around AI being bad for the environment. Typically, people who are more connected to themselves are also connected to nature, to the planet, and they might not really appreciate hearing about all the AI use you've done just because of all of these big old headlines and all that kind of stuff. So it could be taken, say, if Heidi were to use AI to generate all of her promotional material, puts an ad out there, purely 100% AI, just really sinks a lot of time into AI generations, then her audience might not react super well. You can see this with Duolingo. Duolingo is a great example. They dedicated a lot of time and money into using AI for translation, which people weren't the kindest to. So that is kind of the worst case example of what could happen. But truly, the power is in your hand. Examine your audience and weigh the risks. If you are looking for a point in the right direction, the generally safe uses of AI are things like internal functions. First drafts are using it for inspiration for things. Small additions, communications. Maybe you make a personal logo or update your logo with it. Promotional flyers, things of that nature. Basically, anything that could be considered personal to you, or at least does not consist of a large part of your production. And if you do, say you are a super user, you used it through an entirety of a project, but it comes out and still has that same quality that you would expect from yourself, then by all means use it. We are trying to prevent AI slop, which is a term you should Google. It is all over the internet once you know what to look for, and that is what will damage your brand. So as long as you keep away from this AI slop, you will be perfect, you guys, because the ability to create and experiment with this stuff is insanely powerful. And if you were to avoid doing so entirely, you are definitely selling yourself short.
Yeah, I think touching on that, Ben,
Mm,
it is one of those things where it can be so beneficial for you, especially as somebody who you're not an artist to any extent. You do not know how to create these things. You don't even know, like, you wanted to mock something up. We're not saying that you can't do these things. We're just saying that be wary of what you're utilizing these tools for, basically, is the idea. Keep it in the back of your mind. Understand that what you're doing. And to not put out, like Ben said there, to put out this AI slop. If something you think looks, you're like, oh, that looks kind of good enough, that's where you should probably be getting a second opinion, understanding, what you're putting out there, and just making sure that you're representing the best quality of your brand as possible, basically.
yeah, because at the end of the day, it is your brand. So
Mhm.
you choose what happens with it, you choose how it is presented. Just where, with the stat in mind, where the public sits, just use that and consider that while you're moving forward. Thank you for adding onto that, Hank. I appreciate it. And to add one last nail in the coffin of ethical considerations, we're going to move on to the risks of AI and cybercrime because it does exist. We're all aware of fraud. Yeah, this is the funnest stuff, but we're all aware of fraud, and AI is a special addition to all walks of work. So you can use AI, but also so can criminals. And they might use it to portray certain things like identities and I say official communications, but they could even be things such as emails from your grandma. They could be emails from a colleague that you haven't talked to in a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
If things
Not even
things
just
of that
emails.
nature.
It could be, it could be getting a call. Like I've heard of
Hmm.
stories recently of people getting their voice copied and getting called into, somebody like your neighbor's calling you or your little cousin's calling and you're like, this sounds like them, but it really isn't
Hmm.
them. That's where this can be where I think a lot of people are like, all right, this is gonna harm me because it can be scary for that aspect of,
Yeah.
it's equally good and bad in certain cases.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to be made aware of. That's where I had touched on earlier when I came to mentioning 11 labs and Speechify, things of that nature. That's exactly what Hank had mentioned is the reason I brought that up. But knowledge is power, and we're getting empowered here. So we'll jump to slide. So what exactly does AI do for fraud? Well, AI now allows for these fraudsters to commit a deeper scam. What does this mean? So when I say deeper scams, I mean, what does fraud look like pre-AI? Well, it looks like maybe a single web page from a random email that is demanding, hey, your cousin is locked up in jail. Actually, personal anecdote, my grandmother almost fell victim to that very same scam, but it was me in jail and I needed bail of $1,000. But as soon as she started asking what my name was, that argument failed. They had to leave. They it didn't work out. They had one argument, they had one offer, and they had one page, or I guess in this instance, one vehicle. But now with AI, they're allowed, or not allowed to, but are able to create a much bigger, wider um, kind of ruse, right? Now they can use AI to come up with a bunch of different offers, and maybe they could even try to upsell you within their scam. They can make multi-dimensional facades. So maybe they have phone numbers that they're calling you on as well as emails. And now when you try to argue with their reasoning, they could even use AI to come up with a clever response that makes enough sense for you to keep going. Some examples of this are things like Hank had said, which is voice recreation. Maybe you get a call from your grandma asking, etc. Deepfake video, there are certain people who have gone on conference calls and seen who they thought was this CEO figure, but it was in fact a deepfake video. There's been internal fund transfer requests and AI personalized phishing emails, and you see on the screen here, some of them are a lot more likely than the others. The only reason you'd be getting a deepfake Zoom call really is if you stand to lose quite a lot. It takes a lot
Yeah.
for these operations to happen. So the likelihood of you being on a call with your long lost cousin is not very likely. But
Yeah.
things like internal fund transfers and AI personalized emails are a lot more likely.
So
So
Ben, touching on that, I think another thing is that I wanted to make sure that they recognize is, can you go back one slide just so we can see this one
yeah,
more time?
absolutely.
So the same thing applies to you as a business owner as well. And I think it applies in a good way because AI is a true double-edged sword. Because
Mhm.
before, maybe you only had the capability to offer a single offer and you only had a one-page website and you weren't sure how to handle any sort of issues that arose because you're like, I have no clue. Like they had one like take back on your offer and you're like, I don't know how to
Mhm.
respond to this, you know what I mean? Now with AI, you can offer more. You can have more dimensions to approach individuals. You can utilize AI to make your life easier. I think that's a big thing that we want to emphasize here is
Yeah,
that yes, there are like bad people out there that have access to this, but you also have access to this. So you can make your life easier. And the nice thing about it is the more that you use these tools, the smarter you're going to be to recognize when something like this occurs. And when somebody tries to approach you with this, you're like, no, I know this is AI. I'm not worried about this.
absolutely. I appreciate you bringing us back to the light. I tend to focus on kind of the negatives, and it's because I like to make sure people are safe. But
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
a wonderful, wonderful point. There's just as much as these people could perform, you get Hank's point. There's a
Mhm.
lot that you can do with these tools as well.
Yes. Hmm.
And as we're back on a fraud, we're going to actually play a little quick game. This ideally will be done in person as well, but we're also going to take our time with it on a recording. For those of us that have seen this video, try not to, if you attend our in-person session, try not to spoil anything when we get there. This is a message for you guys specifically. I think you're cool, by the way. Thanks for watching. But without further ado, we're going to be playing a game, or let's play a game. If you've seen Jigsaw, we're going to show you two pieces of media. Hey, this is the special. We get to spend special time with whoever watches this. We'll show you two pieces of media that is made by a human and one that is made by an AI. You guys are going to have to guess which one is which. So there's going to be 3 sections, and due to time, we're only cutting it to 2 difficulties. So there's going to be images, audio, and video. 2 difficulties, easy and hard. So let's begin with our images section. Let's rock, you guys. So we're going to put up a timer for about 20 seconds each, and we're going to let you guys participate in this. And if you would like to skip forward, by all means, do it. But we're still going to be here. So each one of these is going to get a 20-second timer. Oops. And we're starting now. Oh, Hank, your mic is off.
So the idea here, guys, is obviously identify which one is the AI. So some of the things I want you to keep in mind that a lot of times leads to understanding what is AI. And then you can go to the next one.
All right.
Um, is to look at certain features of them. Look at the hands, look at their face. Sometimes the face can look a little, for lack of a better words, inhuman. It'll like have like a just a stare forward like this. Like it doesn't really, there's nothing to it. Um, and it can also be in the background. And so there's a ton of different ways to look for inaccuracies within the photo that can lead to uh, identifying which is which. I'm not going to spoil anything, but like I said, make sure you're looking for things about the individual that seem a little off. You get a really
Mm-hmm.
high quality images of these last 3, so take the time to really stare into these individuals' eyes and see what you think.
We'll call this one a practice round because I
Yeah.
think the Solus comment was a great way to spot this one. We'll see
Yes.
which one you guys think it is. So are we
Give
thinking
me a couple
A,
seconds.
B, or C? Mentally lock those in for us. And what do we got? We have it was C. Admire those eyes. We're gonna go back through just
Yeah.
one real quick time.
Yeah. Just go
Admire those
back to them.
eyes. Yeah, there's also the wrinkles near the eyes as well look a little bit strange, especially on that left side. It looks more like a couch cushion than a human face. That's just what I'm noticing compared
Yeah.
to this gentleman or to this gentleman. And again, these are intentionally picked to be a little bit harder to recognize. So that is our
Exactly.
easy section for images. And now we're going to go into something a little bit harder. And this is going to be kind of landscape interior shots. So reset our timer, and here we go. We've got 20 seconds here, you guys. Hank, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. So this section right here is intentionally very hard. Out of every time we've ever ran this, I think only a couple people have ever gotten it. So
Mhm.
it's one that's really hard and requires some context clues. So keep that in mind as you're going through it. So this is our first one. Let's head to the
Mhm.
next one, Ben.
Yep. Certain things to look for, like we had mentioned, the wrinkles underneath that gentleman's eyes. Wrinkles here can also be a pretty good tell. All right. And now we are going to go to our last one in the hard section for images.
So I don't want to give this away, and I'm not going to, but just keep in mind when you're looking at these images, if something looks a little off, something seems out of place,
Mhm.
um, just keep that in mind.
And because this is our hard round, we're going to go back through just really quick so you guys can gloss over what we got. All right. And this is our second and third. So out of these three, which do you believe is the AI photo? Lock those answers in, and it is A. So going back through that, what is the immediate tell here? Well, if you look here, there happens to be a building coming out of the pool. And also, this is where context is very, very dependent. So this looks like the Burj Khalifa. However, if you're familiar with the area, this skyline is totally fabricated other than that building. So
Yeah, and
this
and
is
that's something
where
to get across to people, Ben, and that's something to get across to you guys is that and like a lot of situations when you're coming to identify is this AI or not, it can be very, very hard. And this is just images. We have two more sections that we're going to go through that are going to be testing your skills here, but it is very hard nowadays to be able to determine between AI or not.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of just, utilizing context clues. And a lot of times when you see something like this, it's going to be paired with some sort of text. It's going to be a post of some sort. And sometimes the text can give it away, And so it's a combination of the entirety of the situation that'll help you identify, is this AI or not?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like I had mentioned, we're going to be moving forward into our next section. And if you remember, it's going to be songs. This time, we're going to be getting rid of the timer because we have built-in timers here. So they should be around 20 seconds for each of these. And we're just going to play the songs, let you hear them, and it'll be up to you to decide which one you think is AI. Very first one we have coming up here is the easy mode country edition. Ooh, we should have this.
We're not hearing it on our end, Ben.
And you wouldn't because I have shared three different times, and this time I forgot to hit share sound. So back at it. Now you guys should be expecting the easy section songs for country.
If you believe in nothing, then nowhere is your home. Makes you wanna try apple lumpkin. Apple lumpkin, come and take a look. Every stand's a story, every booth's a book. With a fiddle in the distance.
That's one of my favorites.
Cover from the South Sea. Yeah, I'm a bad man.
And that last one is actually the theme song that plays whenever I enter a new room. I just figured I'd add
Mm.
that. So, resuming the game, you guys, out of those three, you guys have the liberty to go back through the video and re listen to them. So, we're going to give you a moment to do that. And now we're back. So, out of those three, which one do you think is the AI? There's only one of them. Lock in those answers and
Makes you wanna try apple lumpkin.
so we're going to go back just
Yeah.
to talk about it. So, what, Hank, would you say is the identifier here?
Yeah, so a couple different things that I want you guys to be made aware of, especially with songs, because when it comes to songs, they do sound really good. Like I could jam out
Mhm.
to the Apple Lumpkin song any day of the week. Me and Ben
We
have
do
listened to
jam
this
out to it,
song. We
actually.
jam out to it. It's a very good song. And one of the biggest tells is one, obviously, what the lyrics. Who is it? What is it talking about? Things of that nature. And two, you'll notice this in a couple of other examples. There's sometimes like a little bit of a whine to the music. Sometimes their voice stays similar. So there's some
Mhm.
little tells, but for the most part, it's just good music. You know what I mean? It's fun,
Yeah.
interesting music. But I have a story. I actually was visiting a local store and I heard them just singing and singing and it was like high quality music and it was all about their store. And I was like, there's no way this little store paid thousands and thousands of dollars for people to make songs about them. And then the more and more I was sitting there, I was like, wait a second, this is definitely AI. And then I went and tested trying to create a very similar song compared to what they did. And I was able to do basically the exact same song. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's one of those things where as a business owner, it's a cool little opportunity. We're going to show you Suno a little bit later, which was used to create this. It's just a great opportunity to be able to have. Maybe it's your own theme song. Maybe it's just some background music that you enjoy to play. You know, those are things that you can look to do that are beneficial for you, and it's pretty easy to do. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, with that being said,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we're gonna just let you hear Apple Lumpkin just a little bit. Listen for that whine, or more so, listen for it'll sound like the voice doesn't really go over or under a certain pitch.
Hmm.
Makes you wanna try apple lumpkin. Apple lumpkin.
All right, and with that, we're gonna go into our hard section, which will be a double jump. So expect jazz in just a second.
Make
I can hear the rain. Look in my window, but I believe it ain't my gloomy day.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words,
in spring mornings, the sun rises on the horizon. A million colors dance on the.
All right, you guys. So once more, feel free to go back and re-listen to any of those. You might recognize one or two of them, but that's neither here nor there. So lock in mentally if you think it's A, B, or C, and so you guys actually might recognize this song. It recently-ish, a few months ago now, blew up on TikTok, and it was used just as any other song would be used on TikTok for posting just nice little moments of life. But I would say probably 90% of people listening could not tell that it is AI. But
Yeah.
this, out of all of the songs that we've shown you, I'd say has the most apparent kind of whine, especially when he says, in the spring morning, there's a little bit of a whine to it. So we're going to let that play one more time, but then we're going to go right into our video section. So keep an eye out for that.
In spring mornings, the sun.
So if you guys caught that, it sounds, for lack of a better term, as we had mentioned, just whiny. But
Yeah.
we're going to take a moment, breathe, and pause. So we've done images, we've done songs. There's still video ahead of us, but we're going to be flipping the script. We are now going to show you two AI examples, and now it's your job to pick the one real video example. So without further ado, we're going to touch on our videos. And again, we don't need a timer for these. So moving right into it.
Sit.
All right. Now let's go to the second video.
all right, bud, sit.
Good boy. Yes.
All right. And for our last example,
Come here. Sit. Good girl.
all right, you guys. So once again, same protocol. Feel free to go back and revisit those videos, see which one you're thinking, see which one you think is absolutely AI, and which one you think is the real video. Again, you're
This
trying to aim
should
for
be
the
pretty easy compared to the other ones so far. It's easy for a reason. It should be pretty uh, obvious.
Mhm.
Should be pretty obvious, but we'll see.
Yeah, and you guys are picking the non-AI one. So that is C. All the other two were both AI. Really good tell,
Come
I
here.
would say, is the
Sit.
lighting in these videos.
Good
These
girl.
other videos have a very studio-esque lighting, not very natural looking. It also has a very, very high quality image, whereas the real video was taken on an iPhone and is of a living room with natural lighting. And that
Yep.
seems to be kind of the best tell. Shadows are
Mhm.
usually inconsistent currently with AI. So
Yep.
it might not look example being this first one, even in the screenshot. So there's a big old open window right there, but still the shadow for the couch ends directly under it. If you look underneath that little leg, it's kind of hard to see from here, but underneath that little leg, it's like a square shaped shadow. There should be a little bit of a glow from this window coming underneath that. That's where you could tell
Yep.
there.
And if you didn't know, those are my doggies right there. That's me feeding them a treat. That's Honeybee right there on the right and Phoebe on the left that tried to bite my fingers off. And it was pretty funny. We actually did this same thing for some police officers, and they didn't even say, "Oh, well, the video just looks more real," or anything like that. They said, "Oh, well, we see your wristbands." And I thought that was
Yeah,
pretty funny as police officers. That's what they noticed was like a characteristic of me
Sit.
rather than anything else.
Good girl.
yeah, you might be able to see it here. Oh, yeah,
Yep,
What are you
right there.
just
doing?
a barely seen kind of glance, but
Exactly.
still very cool. All right,
Mhm.
and now we're gonna go into our hard. This is kind of the piece de resistance of what we've got to show you here, and then we're gonna go back into talking about fraud. So Hank and I are gonna be quiet while you guys peruse these videos.
Better time to ask the sports guy to come in about 5 hours. Better time to ask the sports guy to come in about 5 hours normally earlier than he would normally wake up. Better time.
Good evening. We're tracking breaking news out of southern Michigan, where a fast moving tornado has just touched down. If you're in the area, seek shelter immediately. Good evening. We're tracking breaking news. News tonight, a major tech outage is affecting millions across the U.S., with banking apps and major platforms suddenly offline.
All right, you guys, if you guys need to, there's a little bit of a latency there, so a little bit of a jumping around, but feel free to go back and review those videos. And once more, pick the real video, just the real
So
one.
I want to give some hints here because it's these ones when we've done this in the past, it's been very, very hard, and I really want you guys to get the idea of how to identify these videos because this is what people are getting scammed upon.
Mhm.
These are what you're seeing on Facebook, and you're like, all right, this looks real and it feels real, it sounds real, but what are some contexts that we could potentially look into? Then play it, and then afterwards, show the real one. Then after that, I want to walk through some ideas here.
Absolutely. So the answer is if you had A, you are right. So,
Hmm.
Better time to.
oh, we're gonna
Just yeah,
go
you can
back
stop
through.
here. You can just stop here, Ben, for a second. I just want to kind of walk through what we're looking for in this. That then we can go back to the video and kind of show what we're talking about. So the reason A is real, obviously, one, it just genuinely is real, but you want to look at some of the context clues of like, all right, what else do we see besides the individual? Because the individual, the person, is usually going to look really good. It's everything else around the person that's going to usually struggle a bit. So as you can see, we can see Mark Woodley and you can see tracking. You can see everything very clearly. Courtesy WWL, it's all there. Whereas if you were to look on the bottom one, you see breaking news is the only thing that looks good. Underneath the breaking news, you see a bunch of gibberish. Makes no sense. You'd never be able to tell it that, what that is supposed to be making out. Maybe it's a different language, but that's in pure plain English, so why would the text not be? And then
Yeah.
for the channel 7, what we're looking at is same thing, the background. He looks great. If you were to just see him without anything else, you would think that's real. But in the background, you can see the tornado doesn't really move. It stays in the exact same spot. You have some of the debris in the background that kind of doesn't really move like it should be. Just things of that nature, like little subtle tells that can give away it. It does do a good job of consistency with Channel 7, Live 7.7. It does great with that, but it's just not all there. It's close, but no cigar.
Yeah, and I would like to also add, so if you are trying to parse whether or not a video is AI, the best way to look for things, sometimes the video doesn't have any obvious tells, like maybe there's a bunch of bunnies bouncing on a trampoline, and then all of a sudden one of the bunnies just kind of melts and disappears. Boom, you can spot that. You can tell that it's AI, or maybe it's a video of people. I've seen some strange videos of people standing on the edge of cliffs. The cliff falls away. It's supposed to be video of people like falling, but then people turn into rocks, or maybe somebody turns into a backpack. Just weird little inconsistencies that way. And otherwise, the best way to tell are lighting inconsistencies. So, for example, maybe it's a window in the background. If there is a good example of maybe a camera light in the background, maybe there's a example of a teleprompter, those actually would prove that it is real. AI cannot really do that, not very well at least. So if there aren't inconsistencies physically, look for inconsistencies with lighting. And that brings us to our finish, you guys. So since we are on the topic of fraud, how does that make everyone feel? Just chew on that mentally, maybe pause the video, maybe shoot a text, say, hey, can you believe this? Make sure to look out for this kind of stuff to your loved ones. Maybe it's your grandma, maybe it's your mom, maybe she doesn't know any better. But besides the point, we're going to move forward to identifying fraud. So just a couple of things to finish this up, because we already have systems in place to kind of tell when people are lying to us. We've been on the internet for the last 20 years. We understand that there are certain people who claim to be a long lost cousin. Maybe it's a Nigerian prince of some sort, and they need you to send them a gift card in order to get access to their fortune for some reason. You probably already know, hey, I know a couple of things to look out for. Weird a payment method. Why would they want gift cards of all things? I also don't know realistically why a prince would be giving me all this money, something too good to be true, etc. But there are certain parts of arguments that we had mentioned earlier that AI can enhance to the point of being at least dismissible for the case of the fraud. You know what I mean? Typically, these are things that happen in a single go, a single night, a single 4-hour phone call, things of that nature. They don't typically go longer than that. And there are certain things that AI cannot enhance with that should start to set off your alarm bell. And if that is the case, dive after these last few things that we're about to show you. So things that AI does not aid well in when it comes to fraud are things like source addresses. It doesn't matter if the website looks as professional as the actual thing. It doesn't matter if their colloquialisms in their email match exactly to how they talk. If something puts you off, always check the source addresses, because they can't be from Facebook. They're probably something from Facebook or something at a glance would look similar. But as soon as you identify it is not who you think it is, don't engage. You know that. Get away from it. Maybe even try to report them to somebody. Another thing that AI does not aid well in are things like implied urgency. AI cannot make time tick faster. So the same scam trick that is used in pre-AI scams can't really be performed any better by post-AI scams. So if somebody is saying, hey, as soon as you can, transfer me these gift cards to make sure you get out of jail, as my anecdote earlier said, that AI is not going to make that time any quicker. The urgency is still going to be there. So if you notice that, always it should raise an alarm, and you should check the source addresses, make sure you're actually talking to who you think you're talking to. And another thing that AI cannot really help with are suspicious pieces of digital content. So maybe you get an invoice from somebody you were expecting an invoice from, but they sent a QR code that they're expecting you to scan. They're not really implying that they need you to click on this link or anything like that. You should raise your suspicions. And once again, you should go back through your checklist and make sure this is actually who you're talking to. And if you don't, I guarantee nobody's going to be upset if you take a moment to send an email, wait for a reply. Hey, can you guarantee that this is who I'm talking to? They should not have any issues. And if they do, then that should be your reason to not engage with them. If they're upset that you're not following through with their demands, it's probably fraud. And from there, it is truly in your hands. Make sure, as you would with any email, be cautious. If it is somebody that you work with and they're sending things kind of out of sync, definitely at least consider potentially this could be some AI fraud there. Otherwise, you guys know what to look out for. And when you feel that twinge in your soul, listen to it and do a deeper examination. You should always listen to your gut feeling when you come to things like this. And so with that activity and with all the ethical considerations finally done, we're going to be moving forward to the additional uses of ChatGPT. The first thing, though, is the settings that we had not yet really dove into last week. And I'm going to be handing this over to Hank, and he is going to be running through this with us as soon as he unmutes.
So for sure, just to kind of highlight what Ben was saying there, I think it's just kind of just like how you would with every other anything when it comes to the internet. Just be careful. Be careful. Just the scammers are now able to be better scammers. So just be wary of that, especially when it comes to your business. So that's a big part of what we wanted to highlight with you guys. Ben did a very good job of getting to the nitty gritty of that. But from here, what I want Ben to do, Ben, if you could, please head over to ChatGPT for me. And we're going to just walk through a couple different things that we didn't get the opportunity to in last session. So I'm going to give everybody a couple seconds just to head over to ChatGPT. And then from there, what I want you guys to do is head down to the bottom left and click on your name.
All right. So give me a moment. This is again a video, so feel free to pause and resume.
So then from there, what we're going to be doing is clicking into the settings. And now there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on that we really didn't get the opportunity to last time. And the first is to head into our data controls. So Ben, if you could please head to data controls. And then from there, we're going to see a couple different things that I want you to look at. The first one being is the improve the model for everyone. This is ChatGPT's way of saying, hey, can we use your data to train our stuff? And you don't want the data to be trained on, you don't want your data to be trained on. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on that and turn it off.
Yeah, make sure it says
Now,
off. So this is default.
make
We'll
sure it's
be on this
yep,
way.
exactly. It's default on, so it's their default trying to train on your information. So be made aware of that. And then from there, this is also where you can archive your chats, delete your chats, anything like that. So just be aware this is where all your data is held. Now from here, what I want you guys to do is head into personalization. There's a couple of things I want to touch on here. Before we get into the custom instructions, something underneath that you're going to see is called memory. Now, the idea with ChatGPT's memory is it tries to remember little tidbits about you that it can bring up in conversations afterwards. Like, all right, I remember that Ben likes cats, or I remember that Ben has a meeting coming up with this individual. So that it can keep those things in mind to be able to bring them up later to better help you, basically. But if you're somebody that deals with sensitive information on these tools on a daily basis, you can turn these things off. So as you can see right here, we have a reference saved chats, we have a referenced chat history and reference saved memories. You can turn these off so that it doesn't have to worry, that you don't have to worry about it anymore. Or you can keep them on and you can manage your memories as well. If I were you, if you're somebody that's using this personally and it's not too big of a deal what's being input in there, I would keep the memories on. It's just a nice, easy little benefit that can be for you, but it's not a terribly big deal if you were to turn it off. You're not going to notice any huge changes there. Now, from there, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the top thing. It's custom instructions right there. Now, when we open this up, what this is it's an area for you to customize ChatGPT to better tailor to what you enjoy and how you want ChatGPT to act and respond. So you can add in a nickname like Ben. I think recently had it as best to ever step foot on the court, just something funny and dumb. And then from there we can add in what we do. So this is what I would recommend for you. If you're somebody that's new to the tool, it's beneficial for ChatGPT to know as much about you as you would want it to know, so that anytime you go to have a chat with it, you're not having to front load a bunch of information. So if you
Mhm.
tell it, hey, I am in sales, and then you from there move on to some of the traits that you want it to have, for example, Ben just put in there, you want it to have the trait of a sales expert. So maybe you also want it to be straight shooting, encouraging. If you wanted to, you could have it have a Gen Z slang to it if you really wanted to. But you can do that, and then you can also I'll let Ben cook for a second. You can also add in anything that ChatGPT should know about you. Now, the really cool thing about this customizing this experience is it just sets it up so that you or ChatGPT always knows a fair bit about you. And that's the goal here is to save you from having to consistently go back and forth saying, hey, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what I do. Now it just remembers exactly what you do. It remembers how you want your chats to sound. It remembers experience about you and what you're doing in your space. Then you're good to go. So as you can see Ben here added in, all right, what should I know about you? I'm now just starting with this role. I'm relying on critiques from you to better my sales skills. Awesome. So for your example, or for an example here, if you maybe let's say you're Heidi, you could be inputting that, all right, what do you do? I'm just starting out my own business, and some of the traits you want to be encouraging. And then for what should I know about you? Maybe you could say I'm in the health space and we've been going to farmers markets to sell our products, things of that nature. So you can add these things in so that it has this knowledge of you always going forward when it looks to help you out.
Yeah, and I would like to also add, say you are, we'll use the term super user. This is also where if you notice there are certain things that ChatGPT will do, maybe it always adds emojis, and you're like, man, I hate that it always does this. This right here is where you would add those custom instructions to
Mhm.
prevent that. Or maybe you want it to stop using those big, grandiose words. This is the cutting edge. This is the et cetera, et cetera. You understand AI vocab. You could probably spot it in a social post if you're friendly with the tools enough. But this is also where you would add those limitations there. I know my personal traits that I have is a very long-winded, markdown formatted, um, kind of source insurer. I don't know. It does a lot more than that, but it basically will ensure that my ChatGPT will tell sources, or if it cannot pull something from its database slash it doesn't have exacts, it'll present itself as unsure. And you will probably have to go through and change these as the model is improved, because each of these models behaves differently, and each of these models have certain quirks. So do keep that in mind, that this should not be set in stone, but more so drawn in sand.
Yeah, exactly. As you begin to use the tool more, your preferences will change. Information that you have about your business as it continues to grow will change. So from there, what I recommend you do is if you want to pause and go and mess with your settings real quick, I would recommend adding some custom instructions. It's a great thing to do for beginners, especially. But from there, we are now going to be moving into our next thing, which is GPTs. So
Mhm.
on the left-hand side right here, you're going to see the capability to click on GPTs. If you are a free user, your screen might look a little different, but you should have access to use GPTs no matter what. So the cool thing is is that a GPT, just to break it down for you, is a custom version of ChatGPT. So you can give it more instructions, you can give it some extra knowledge, and you can have it have some certain extra skills as well. So what I'd recommend for you is to take a look at some of the already pre-built GPTs, because this is the GPT store. Because let's say you wanted to create a GPT for copywriting, there's likely already one in here that you could utilize. So keep that in mind as you go about looking to create one. But the really cool thing, and the reason we're talking on this, which is why I'm excited about this for you guys, is you can create a bunch of uh, mini helpers, mini employees for different tasks. So let's say you could have one for sales, one for marketing, one for administrative. You can build out all of these little mini GPTs that can then help you for that specific task or that specific part of your position. So it's really, really powerful for small business owners. I just want
Yeah,
to
I would
quickly, Ben, what do you want to add in?
really quickly just to add, because I know we are also emphasizing some data safety stuff as well. That when you do go ahead and use these tools, just to, I know we just went through data controls and stuff like that, but do make sure that you're not putting other people's or your own personal data into these tools. Make sure you're always anonymizing that data, as we had talked about in our first session. If you maybe missed that first session or need a refresher, feel free to reach out to us or to Sheila, and we'll get you a quick refresher on that. But again,
Yeah, for
just
sure.
to stress and kind of pin that tail on the donkey, make sure you're being safe with the data that you use. Um, the likelihood that it's going to damage you is low, but the likelihood, the chance is always there. So
Yeah,
again, be
exactly.
careful.
Yeah. Mhm. So to get back to what we're doing, on the top right-hand corner, you're going to see the capability to click create if you have a pro subscription. If you do not have a pro subscription, I'd wholeheartedly recommend it. It's $20 a month. It's a lifesaver. It's gonna make ChatGPT 10 times better. I totally recommend it. When you click this create button, you're going to be brought to a new screen here. Now, this is where you can build out your own GPTs. And it looks like a lot when you're first looking at it, but it's a fairly simple and straightforward process. On the left-hand side, you see a create and a configure tab. And on the right-hand side, you see a preview. So the idea here is as you're building out on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, you can practice and play with it and see how you like it. So on the left-hand side right here is the Create tab. In the Create tab, this is where you can conversationally build these GPTs out. So as you can see, Ben is typing in, I want help creating an artificial business partner who always acts as a devil's advocate. Now, if Ben were to click enter right here, it's then now going to do a little bit of a back and forth. It's going to update the GPT, and then likely it's going to ask a couple more questions of, all right, what do you want it to, what's the name? Do you want it to uh, potentially what tone do you want it to have? Now, what you can do if you wanted to front load it, if you had a really good idea of what you're looking to build, you can upload like a big old paragraph of saying, hey, I want you to do this, this, and that. Well, that's a cool little image we got there. I like that. But what you can do is you can front load it with a bunch of information if you have a big prompt of what you're looking to do. You can even, this is a little pro tactic. You can have ChatGPT come up with your instructions for you as well. And it can be pretty robust there. Now, as we can see, Ben is adding in a couple extra things in terms of like tone and also to pull from Alex Hormozy, who is a really great business owner slash sales guy.
Yeah, personal favorite of mine.
Mhm.
Conversationally,
Now,
we're just gonna. There's only a couple more things, so we're gonna just go through the just to show you how quick it is to put one of these together.
mhm,
Again, always
exactly.
refine.
And that's the nice thing about these that I wanted to recommend show to you guys is that as you're creating this and it's updating, you don't have to have it be conversational. So Ben's going to answer one or two more questions, then we're going to head into the configure tab and show you a bit more of how to do it manually if you want to change up these instructions. It's pretty cool. You can see it as it's updating the GPT, and that gets reflected in the instructions as well.
It should be
Right,
done
Ben, as an
here though
update, so
now.
let's click into the let's just go to the configure tab just so we for the sake of time because this is
Yeah,
we don't want to spend too much. But the, right there, basically right there. It's all right, good to go. Perfect. Um,
all good. And then perfect.
so
Stop.
click on the configure tab for me, Ben, because
Yeah.
you're always going to be able to create. So on the
Yeah.
configure tab, this is where you can change the name, you can change the image, you can also change the description. So all this is reflected on the right-hand side, as you can see the preview. And so here's a description, a professional friendly contrarian partner using Hormozy style critiques. Boom, you can see it on the right side. You also have the capability to change up your instructions. This is where you're going to want to play a little bit back and forth with it. As you can see, this is a ton of instructions that we have in here. But
Hmm.
let's say the style, you don't really like how the style is. You can either go through the create section and tell it the style that you want to change up, or you can go directly into the configure and change up the style there, just saying, hey, okay, I don't want the Hormozy style. Maybe I want it more of a Mark Cuban style. And then you could change it up and be good to go.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to add that here just because this is
No,
very,
you're
very
good.
much built upon the Hormozy style, and it would just
No,
get
I
messy.
just wanted to, I was just mentioning that, Ben, just for their own sake.
Yeah,
Um,
and go ahead, Hank.
I was gonna say from there, we also have the conversation starter. So this is just as you go to look to use these tools, maybe you want it to be that I always start the conversation this way, or maybe you have like four different topics that you're usually gonna start with, and then you can then jump into a conversation that way. So it's pretty easy in that aspect.
Yeah, so we're just going to hit create really quick just to see one of those in action. Only me.
And the cool thing is with the GPT is that you can share it between you and your team, you and some others. So if you build out a GPT that you really, really like, you can then share it with your friends and they can all use it as well.
And so, for example, these are very hastily thrown together. Ideally, this would have a lot more knowledge to it, but the idea and style is there.
So one other thing that I want to touch on, Ben, and then we're good to go on this. We don't need to really show it more than this. The other thing we can touch on is the ability to upload files. So this one's really powerful, especially if, let's say, with like Ben's Busy Buddy, he has some information about his business that he wants to make sure that it always has. What you would
Mhm.
do is you simply click upload video files. When you click upload files, from there, all you would do is drop in, let's say it's a PDF or a document, and then now that AI tool, the GPT, will always look at its files and make sure that it's getting that information before it goes to answer your question. So it always
Yeah,
has that
and
context in play when it goes to help out.
just a real quick addition to that. So if you do upload files, this should be automatically checked. But if it is having struggles reading your data or really referring to the knowledge base that you've given it, i.e., the files you've uploaded, then just click right here and it will fix that issue.
Exactly. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to cover here when it comes to creating a GPT. What I'd recommend is if you have the chance, try out creating a GPT yourself. I'd pause the video right now, play around with it yourself, create one. Just have fun with it. See what you can come up with. Maybe you're wanting to create a something similar to what Ben has. Maybe you want a business partner that's going to not challenge you, but maybe uplift you. Maybe you want it to only help for a certain task that you have in mind. Try it out, play with it, spend a couple minutes with it, and see what you can come up with. And then
Yeah,
next
and
week, we'll see if anyone's come up with anything interesting.
yeah, and the very last point, be careful the data you put in them.
Anyway, so now, all right. So last thing I want to cover when it comes to ChatGPT is the project feature. So this is the last thing that we're going to cover when it comes to using these tools. Now, basically, what a project is, bare bones basics. It's a uh, basically it's a way to hold chats into a folder, is what it is. It's a project or a easy to use folder area. Whereas you can see Ben just created Entrepreneur Session 2. We can add in some files as a base ground or foundation knowledge. but we can also just have conversations directly within this chat as well. So it's a great place to, like I said, hold conversations. So if you have a bunch of different chats that have to do with the entrepreneurial session, you can then grab them and drop them underneath this.
This is a bad example.
Ben, go to one of your examples that you have before. We can experiment right there.
I do. They might have a little bit of sensitive information attached to them.
Okay.
Here. So this is an
There
example of
we go.
a
Perfect.
sales chat that we created.
So as you can see, without clicking anything for private information, up in the top right, Ben has uploaded 7 different files into this. So anytime Ben goes to type with this, it has 7 different files it's looking at for context to be able to, obviously approach this conversation.
Yeah, and this is one that has been trained for critiquing sales pitches. So it's got a lot more. Oh, we're gonna have to cut this out. Whoops.
Yeah, I don't know
Name
what you're
drops
trying
it
to.
immediately.
Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to do there, Ben. That's all right though. We'll just cut this part because we're rambling at this point. We've covered everything.
Hmm.
Um, just go back to the SMB entrepreneur session. We'll just kind of keep going from here. It's doing the same thing again where I see the audience window. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So now that we've covered all that there is to do with ChatGPT, I want you guys to take a second just to think about, all right, what can I do with GPTs? What can I do with projects? How can I make my life easier with the opportunities that are now available to me? So just keep those things in mind. Like I said, what I'd recommend is pausing the video, playing with those to yourself, getting a better feel for them, because once you get GPTs down and you're really playing with them and you're loving them, you're not going to go back. You're going to always want to be using GPTs for things, and you're going to always want to use projects for things. So wholeheartedly recommend it. From there, Ben, I think, let me see, can I click on the screen as well? Okay, we've already covered this, covered GPTs. I would now want to cover just a simple tool vetting process. I'm going to touch on the first part, then Ben's going to touch on the second part, and then we're going to get into our next session, which is the tools themselves. So there are 4 different things that I want you guys to keep in mind when it comes to approaching a new tool. With the first one being, is it safe? Does this tool, like Ben was saying, does this tool protect my data and meet the safety rules that I need to follow or have self-imposed on myself? So Ben's going to be touching on that more in a second, but there are some pretty interesting rules that you should be looking for and compliance things that you should be trying to make sure that the AI tools you're looking to use abide by. The next big
Hmm.
one is who controls it. And this basically boils down to, all right, am I using my own private version that's just my information? Or is it running through someone else's system? Is this something that's local to me, or is it run through somebody else's server? So keep that in mind as well. I mean, a lot of the times, most tools you're going to be using are likely going to be using someone else's system to some extent. So keep that in mind when it comes to the data that you're inputting into them. And then
Hmm.
next, will it play nice with what I already use? This is one of the bigger questions in my mind, especially for feasibility. Should you be using the tools? Can it connect with my current software? Does it already work with some of the tools that I already use? And does it fit into my workflows? It's like this goes into the final point of does it actually solve my problem? But you want to make sure that these tools are genuinely beneficial to you. You don't want to be bringing in a new tool just for the sake of bringing in a new tool just to feel cool. I mean, you can if you want, but the idea here is to save time and make your life easier. So with that being said, Ben, I'll let you take over for the data safety checklist real quick, just to kind of walk through that.
Yeah, so everyone's favorite. So just to rehash the really this pertains to mostly number 1 and number 2 here. So
Mhm.
when it comes to does it protect my data and meet safety rules, in America, the minimum that you want to ensure is that it stands up to an SO2 or SOC2 type 2 safety compliance checklist. If it meets that, awesome. And most commercial AI will. There are some outliers, little small tools that maybe are for a very niche audience. So if you have um, a niche business that happens to have a very specific niche CRM that supposedly fixes all of your issues, make sure that it meets this safety compliance. Two, will that tool allow you to disable data retention? This is a lot more likely to be on these general use chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. that we use. When it comes to more, again, niche tools, probably a little bit less of a ability there. But data retention isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if we are always anonymizing our data, as we had mentioned, as I keep stressing and being a bummer in that way. And the very last thing, is this tool CCPA or GDPR compliant? This is especially true. GDPR, if all you do is work within the US, United States, then really all you need to worry about is the CCPA compliancy. But if you're trying to work outside of the US, always make sure that the tools are GDPR compliant. Otherwise, you could potentially be on the hook for a pretty big fish if you're not careful, especially when using other people's data. And speaking of using other people's data, we bring our eyes to the very bottom of the screen. If you are using other people's information, you should, one, always anonymize. Boom, I'll say it again. Ensure always that these 3 bullet points are met, and also additionally ensure encryption that is at both encryption both at rest and in transit. So again, most commercial AI will comply by everything we see here. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be as commercially known. So chances are, if you're using a big name, be OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, etc., you're probably in the clear. But once you get more into the weeds with tools, that's where you should start. Okay, let me just do a quick background check on these tools. And we're going to actually show you a tool that makes it a little bit easier to find the answers here. But if we don't have that tool, what are the other things we can do? Well, you can always reach out to a product expert via their support line. You can usually schedule a demo as well. They'll probably have the answers you're looking for. And as I mentioned, you could use a tool like Perplexity. And lastly, if you are unable to get in contact with anybody and the research comes up empty, very much so proceed with caution. If you are just using it for personal things, you're not putting anyone else's data but yours at risk. Your entity, nobody else. If you have employees, you're not putting their data at risk. If it is just you, then you choose to do with that what you will. So if it does seem like it's the perfect tool and you want to use your personal information just to kind of try it out, run it, do. But if you are piloting it and it does come up empty on these things, always use mock data just to kind of get a feel for them. And with that, we're going to, now that we know how to vet tools, we're going to show you a few tools that we have already vetted that are great for a variety of business tasks. And Hank is going to be taking that from me.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we have a couple different tools that I want to showcase you. And now that we've kind of walked through the process of what we think vetting, how to vet these tools. And then like we said, when we touch on those, like the more rigid compliance type of things, I want you guys to recognize that that is a lot it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to approach. And we're not saying, hey, don't use tools. It's not what we're saying. It's just understand that what is out there. If you're finding a brand new tool that just came out and you want to try it out and you're going to upload all of your clients' information in there, that's where you need to be wary. It's basically, we're stressing this because it's one of those things where if you kind of just turn your brain off and just try to use tools without the idea of like vetting it to any extent, that's where you're going to run into problems. If you come at it from a point of, all right, I want to make sure this is safe. I want to make sure that this is going to be genuinely useful, you're gonna be generally good to go. But that's why we wanted to stress also, you can find product experts. Most people will allow you to run a demo and you can ask those questions. And if they don't have an answer for it, then that tool is not right for you. So yeah, wanted to highlight that. With that being said, let's hop into our first tool, Ben.
Yeah, so we're gonna go one slide over, just so we get an idea for it. Perplexity AI.
Yep.
We are not affiliated.
Yeah, we're not affiliated with any of these tools, so don't gotta worry about that. But Perplexity is a very cool tool. It's similar in terms of like chatting. It's a chat type of tool. But the really powerful thing when it comes to Perplexity is it's really great for searching. It's great for researching, things of that nature. It's the perfect storm from if once you now that you've used ChatGPT, you know how to type with it, but it then combines in like Google level powerfulness in terms of being able to search and identify things. It's,
Yeah.
like I said, awesome for research and fact checking, things of that nature. And it's much faster than sort of traditional search engines because what it does is kind of like you see Google's AI now when it pops up, and then it summarizes all the information for you. So you're not having to go and click on every single website and trying to find information. It just all is conglomerated right there for you, and it gives you all the sources. That's one of the biggest things that Ben's a very big fan of Perplexity.
Hmm.
He loves it because it always gives the sources and sends it right to you, and you're like, all right, well, I can double check, and you can click on the source, and it'll take you exactly to where it found that in the website as well. So very powerful
Hmm.
tool. Ben's going to show it here in a second and just going to give you an idea of it. Some of the cons is that it is dependent on internet access, like most tools are. It doesn't have like a crazy amount of personalization features, and it's less effective if you're going to do like the most insane in-depth analysis. It's a lot
Yeah.
for surface level research, things of that nature. So Ben,
Yeah.
without further
It
ado,
is not a
let's see
tool.
what this tool looks like.
Yeah, it is not a tool for making documents, but it is a tool for getting all of the information you need to put in a document. So real quick,
Exactly.
I'm going to exit
Yeah.
this, and
Mhm.
I have a window right here of Perplexity, and boom, it
Awesome.
might look very, very familiar. Might look
Mhm.
exactly like most of the AI chatbots that we talk to, and that's intentional. That's by design. I think if you want to
Mhm.
explain things, I can go through here, or otherwise I can
Yeah, for sure.
freestyle it.
So basically, just to because we don't have a terrible amount of time to show every single one of these tools
Yeah.
in its entirety. So just for you guys at home, when you're looking to use the tool, as you can see, Ben's going to ask a question. We're going to see what this looks like. But the idea here that I want you guys to recognize is that this tool is very similar to ChatGPT, but it's more powerful in the research side of things. That's why we're recommending it because you're probably asking yourself, all right, well, why can't I just use ChatGPT for this? You can, but you're not going to get as great of results and not as updated results. Sometimes ChatGPT can struggle to pull up the most recent sources, whereas Perplexity is always going to find the most recent and most beneficial sources and information. As you can see, you
Yeah.
got the
And
key follow up, things of that nature. Here's the sources. Bands can pull up the source, and it's got everything we need.
yeah, it's got up to 17 sources, which is far and above most any of these. I would call Perplexity the ship of the line when it comes to AI search engines. And just a little bit of inside knowledge. Apple is debating buying it and replacing their Safari with it. I think they are dumb if they don't. I think Perplexity would be nothing but a
Yeah.
benefit.
So we might be seeing a lot more perplexity if you're an Apple user. But so that's the
Mhm.
first tool we wanted to show you today. Very powerful. I'd recommend looking into it. And let's move into our second tool. I'll give you a second, Ben,
Yeah.
to get back into present your screen. Awesome. So the next tool we have is called Adio. Now, I don't know how many of you use a CRM. If you do not use a CRM, I will explain it really quickly what a CRM is. It is basically a customer relationship management platform where you can manage your contacts, any sort of pipeline that you have. That's basically just sales talk for saying your workflow of how you approach new people, new clients, things of that nature. And it's a great place to just hold all of your communications with all of your clients. Now, there are a ton of great tools out there, but a lot of them are pretty expensive, and not all of them have started utilizing AI. So we found this one
Hmm.
is called Adio. It's a very solid platform. It's highly customizable. It's a super clean interface, and it has some great features that are within it itself. So the really cool thing about these AI CRMs is that you can have it help you identify, all right, well, how should I reach out to this person? How can I restart this conversation? Things of that nature that regular
Hmm.
old CRMs really don't do. And the more known CRMs are just genuinely much more expensive. I mean,
Oh yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of dollars more for
Sometimes
just the access
thousands.
yeah, exactly. Just for access to their AI features, just for access to the CRM in general. So
Mhm.
some of the cons also bleed into that idea that they're not as large as other ones. So it is still maturing and it might not have as many integrations, but it's still so much cheaper. And they offer a free plan. I have a free plan of it that we are potentially going to be looking into using ourselves. So
Yeah.
that's ADIO. Just wanted to make sure you guys had a CRM to look into, and yeah,
Yeah, and just to add fuel to the fire outside of the AI space, right? We've done a lot of consulting for people, and we see specifically like solopreneurs and like smaller businesses just using a single Excel sheet to manage all of their customers, which just
yep,
outside looking in is insane. Should you try a CRM? Try a
yep.
CRM. It might take a little bit of growing, but I think it'll help you immeasurably, at least with keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The idea here, and I think I want to emphasize with you guys, is that the tools we're showing you today are not tools that are like a must-have for you right now. The idea here is to get your brain racking of what's out there. So
Mhm.
it might not be that ADIO is the perfect fit for you, but it could be something similar is. So that's what we're recommending for you guys to play around with these tools, get comfortable with them, try them out, and understand what is out there. So Ben, with that, let's head to the next one. Take a look at it. So this next one is my personal favorite. I use this every day. It's called Notion, and it is, for the lack of a better word, an all-encompassing digital workspace. Think of it similar to like the Google Workspace, where you can create documents, things of that nature, but a step better, honestly. That's why I use it, because you can take notes, you can have all of your tasks on here, you can build out entire documents for you and your team where it could be, on a per client basis, you have all the tasks for this client, things of that nature. So it's an extremely powerful platform and it's very cheap. You can either do it completely free and get a
Mhm.
ton of different options, or you can spend the $10 a month and get access to the AI features, which allow you to have conversations with all of your documents that you've ever uploaded. So it's very powerful in that it's just a all-in-one perfect spot to be. I cannot recommend it enough. If you're anyone that ever has to deal with a bunch of information to any extent and need a spot to put it, this is the spot to put it. So,
Yeah,
um,
and just to add a few points to that, Notion can replace your CRM. It could replace your
as
calendar. It
well,
could replace your
yes,
documents. It could replace your Excel sheets. It really is like an all-in-one kind of platform, like a
literally
super
all in one.
notepad.
Yes.
Seriously, an
So if
insane tool.
Exactly. So if you're looking for, like, for example, we have a client of ours, and he was like, "All right, I am taking notes on a notepad on my side of my computer, and I have all of my people in an Excel sheet." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, you need to be checking out Notion." And I showed it to him, and he literally his mouth dropped. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I can take notes here. I can have all my clients here. I can have all my tasks here, and it's all right on my calendar that I can see as well right here." And it was just a game changer for him, and it made his life so much easier. So I want you guys to be made aware of that. Ben, do you have a Notion open up so we can just take
I do have
a quick
Notion.
little peek at it?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So one of the biggest things that I want you guys to know when it comes to Notion is that it can be a little overwhelming at first. It's a lot to look at. What I would
Hmm.
recommend to you is, if you're looking to take some time with it, I think Notion itself has a little bit of a guide that walks you through how to use the platform. But if not, what I'd recommend is, one, playing around with the tool, and then two, I would pull up a YouTube video and watch like a 10-minute video. There's a ton here, and it's an exciting ton. Like there's a lot to be able to use this
Seriously,
tool
it just
for.
keeps going.
Exactly. You can connect about any other tool that you can think of into this. So let's say you have a CRM that you want to have connected into it. You can connect the CRM into it. So very powerful tool. I wanted to make sure that we touched on it and showed it to you guys, and that if you have the chance, I would use it and play around with it and see what you could get it to do for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, good on that one. That was an exciting one. I wanted to get that out of my system. It's
Yeah.
a very powerful tool, and it's one that I cannot recommend to enough to especially small business owners. Now, the next one is one that would be great. I think we said, who is it great for, Ben?
We said it was really good for who took a lot of sales calls. I think it might have been Ed. I know Ed had a lot of
Yeah, I think it was
individual
Ed. I think
questions on his.
Christopher as well would be a great option for
Mhm.
this. So just so you guys know what Otter AI is. Otter AI is a meeting notes recorder. It's a transcription tool that you can set up. I can genuinely just pull it up on my phone. You can't really see my phone, but you can pull it up on your phone. I can have it record a meeting between me and another individual, and then it's saved. It's good to go. It automatically transcribes the entire meeting for you. And from there, now you don't have to worry about taking notes the entire time. It makes life so much
Mhm.
easier. It is, and out of all the tools that I would recommend approaching past ChatGPT, this is the next most approachable tool
Oh,
because
very
it's
easy.
so easy to use. There's a free option that you guys can look into to try test the water yourselves, and it's perfect for anything to do with Zoom meetings, anything to do with in-person meetings as well. The big difference
Mhm.
with Otter AI is you can just kind of pull it up on your phone. It doesn't have to be that you're in a Zoom call the entire time, but it does
Mhm.
integrate with Zoom and Google Meet and things of that nature. So very powerful tool, one that I'd recommend to anybody that deals with clients to any extent or any sort of important conversations because they can be recorded and then you don't have to worry about having to, you know, remember all that information yourself. It's all there for you to review and look over. So very cool. We're not going to show this one. This one's more of what I'd recommend is go check it out yourself and play around with it.
Mhm.
Some of the cons that I can mention here is it can struggle with heavy accents. So if you deal with somebody with a heavy accent on a very often basis, it can be struggle with that. From there, if you want some of the more advanced features, I'd recommend getting the subscription. And there also can be some data storage as well that you want to be wary of. Be made
Yeah,
aware, like how we had
and
mentioned every other tool.
yeah, and just to go a little deeper on that, because I'm sure it's probably raising a little bit of a stink for some people with data storage or privacy considerations. It's that you can have Otter join a Zoom call and it can store the meeting transcript even if all parties were not immediately consenting. And that is what the consideration is that this meeting is being recorded and stored. You can of course turn that off or just delete the meeting as well. Also, anyone that is within the meeting should get a link to the exact recording themselves. So,
Exactly. Mhm.
mhm.
Awesome. So let's move on to the next one, Ben. So the next one is called Seamless. Now this it's a very powerful tool. This one I think is great for Christopher as well. Now the idea here is Seamless is a lead enrichment platform. So the idea here is if you have a lead that you want to know more information about, Seamless as an AI tool will go and research that individual, find more information about them, and then come back to you and be like, hey, here's relevant information about Ben, about Ben that you need to know that's going to help you in your next call with them. So very powerful tool. One I'd recommend looking into yourself. When it comes to these type of research and enrichment platforms, they do have a prettier penny to them. I'm not sure the exact price on this one, but it's closer to more of that $40 to $60 range rather than it is a $20 subscription. So keep that
Mhm.
in mind when using the tools, but they can provide a lot of value in identifying, potential new clients, things of that nature. So be made aware of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really
and
all I have to say about Seamless. It's a great platform. There are a ton like it. So if you are interested, I would shop around a little bit as well and see which one best fits you.
yeah, and just to add just a little point, because I'm sure somebody has caught their eye on this. This is actually not the screenshot. That's an oversight by me. This is from a previous presentation of a tool called Veritone for police officers. So do check it out. This is not their site. If you're wondering why it says reduce burnout and turnover or centralized fragmented data, digital evidence, that's what it is.
So the next one we're going to go through is called Notebook LM. Now you've likely heard of this one if you have any sort of students in high school or middle school. There's a good chance that they have actually used it themselves. Now the idea here is you can upload documents and not only one ask questions about them, but you can also turn those documents into a podcast. So if you're somebody that's visual, likes to visually learn and intake information, it's an awesome platform. Ben, I think we have an example here that you want to pull up
Yes,
really quickly.
I
It's
do.
it's very interesting. Uh, and very powerful. I mean, I use it very often uh, to generate audio overviews as well. So Ben, are
Mhm.
you
Especially
with
with all
us?
the research papers and study documents that come out around AI, which is
Exactly.
practically every day, if not every week.
Mhm. Awesome. Ben, can you
So
play a audio over
so
for us?
just a quick overview. Notebook LM allows you to just upload any sort of document, file, anything of that nature, and it also allows you to ask that information questions. Maybe it's highlight certain things. Maybe it's you want specifically the most powerful features. You want a video explainer or a podcast to tell you what is in these sources. So we're going to show you that really quickly. So generate an AI podcast based on the sources, which is our personal prompting guide, for example.
Once you click that, it's going to take a little bit to generate. Now, this is definitely something we should have done beforehand, which is because it's going to take a while to generate. Um,
Okay.
that's my bad. I should have told you beforehand.
No, you're good. You're good. I personally, I'm not always on this tool. I am,
Yeah,
we each have
that's
our own
good.
workflow.
Hmm.
All right. We'll go back to that. For now, we'll touch on Suno.
Okay. Also, the last tool that we're going to touch on is the one that we mentioned and had you guys um, testing out, playing around with yourself, like just like hearing those voices, hearing the music. All right, well, this is the tool that we use to build out those AI examples. So basically, what it is, it's an AI music generator, and it can create entire songs with lyrics, with instrumentals, and it's great for you guys if you're looking to do any sort of original music for, I mean, maybe advertisements, but a lot of times it's going to be more for like theme music. Maybe it's you have your intro song, or maybe it's there's a theme to your business, something interesting like that. It could be for podcasts, social media. There's a ton of different opportunities there. Ben actually went, and I'm pretty sure Ben, you generated a song, right?
Yeah, this one
Little
I've
theme
got.
song
This one
there.
I've got for us. So while this is still generating, we're going to get back to that in a second. But I'm going to pull up Suno over here, which I have my own workspace created called Experiments on it. Came up with a bunch of songs called Hank and Me. All I put was a theme song. So the way this app works is this is definitely more of a funner side of things for you to experiment with. But what happens is you come to this site, you get your account set up. There's going to be a box right here that says song description. You could do your maybe you add the lyrics that you've already come up with. Maybe you use ChatGPT to come up with the lyrics exactly as you want them. Maybe you use audio, for example. But the main magic is then this prompt right here. And what I said was a theme song for me and my business partner, Hank. We're AI literacy trainers and that make it simple and actionable. And then I saw one of these little add-ons here. It was called yearning. I was curious what that meant, so I added that as well. And it resulted in every time you generate, you get a couple of songs, and it just freestyles what it thinks you want from here, unless you add the lyrics of your choice. Then it'll always use those lyrics. But for an example, the one I've listened to is this first one. It wasn't the greatest, so let's try this one. Correct.
Hank and me, we write the code, we walk the talk, we crack the load, breaking down the mighty mind maze, turning clouds into sunlit days.
All right. Yeah, and we'll do one more.
Hank and me, we break the code.
We're only going to give it that much. If you remember us talking about that wine, you can probably hear it in both of those voices right there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and then
Exactly.
with
Ben,
that,
let's take a look at the other one, see if it generated
oops,
right there. Yeah.
come
So it'll
back in a
take a
few
couple
minutes. Yeah,
minutes.
definitely.
No worries.
That is definitely my bad. We'll come back to that at the end. But for here, we have some homework for you guys.
Take your good wait to get back into it. Okay. All right, so guys, what I want you guys to do now is we're going to be drafting your tool to play around with. So Ben, can you click on the next page so we can get a little idea of what we're going to be looking into? and kind of the
Yeah.
idea of what to expect. So the idea here is you're going to be drafting the AI tool of the six that I just mentioned that we just saw that best fits your needs. The idea is kind of to imagine yourself as a coach looking at your team or looking at your tasks that need to get done, and then trying to fill those spots with one of those AI tools. How could this one help the other one, or how could this benefit me overall? So Ben can click one more page for me. So the idea here is after you pick your tool, what I want you to do, and we'll just kind of keep going because it's a video, but what I want you guys to do is take 8 to 10 minutes to play around with the tool. Then what I want you to do is come up with the main reason of why you're looking to use this tool, and also come up with the like the main benefit. What's the main benefit that's going to have for you? And then that's
Mhm.
going to be your way of determining to yourself, all right, is this going to genuinely benefit me? And play around with it for 8 to 10 minutes, just to see what it can come up with.
Yeah. So this is a basically us opening up the floor to you to pick some of the tools that we've presented. Maybe there's a tool that you've thought about doing and you haven't been super sure. Give yourself the chance to play around with it. You've heard about it. Why not give it a shot right now? This is what we're
Exactly.
here for, is trying to enhance our businesses with AI.
Exactly. So Ben, click one more page for me. So a couple bonus points that I want you guys to be keeping aware of. Now, this was meant to be an in-person set or in with people with you guys here,
Yeah.
but bonus points if you can identify one feature that we didn't mention that really interested in you. Maybe it's on Notion that you can upload voices or something like that that you thought was very interesting. With that being said, also just for helping you guys use the tools we've already used to learn more about the tool that you're looking to get into. So the tool that I'm talking about is either Perplexity or ChatGPT. What you can do is you can research a bit about the tool you're looking to use. Hey, does it meet the compliance? What features does it have towards it? So you can do a little bit of initial research before actually jumping on the tool itself, and that can help with your ending decision of, all right, does this tool make sense for me and my business? So with that being said, Um, that wraps up our session for today. We ended up actually going about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit under. Actually, I think we're actually about exactly at an hour and a half, that being said. But we're wrapping up day two. Ben, did you have any final thoughts or things you wanted to add in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for being here with us. Ideally, we're also going to be doing this in person.
Yeah,
If
this was
that
very
isn't the
much
case,
so impromptu. This was like
yes.
at the last second, we had learned that this was going to be this case. So we're like, all right, let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, so let us know how it went. For us, this is one of our first times talking to an empty room. Usually we have people to bounce ideas off of and faces to
Yep.
kind of interact with and understand like how the material is coming across. If people have questions, they can ask questions. So if things seemed a little long-winded, it's because they were. It's because we're trying to anticipate what you might be thinking, what you might be asking.
Mhm. Yep. So with that being said, guys, appreciate you for sticking around for this video. This is day two of the series. In day three, so Ben, what I want you to click to the homework page for me. Day three, which is coming up a week from
Oh,
today, unless something changes, um, where we're doing this one next week again, I have three different goals for you. This is your homework. So the first one is to identify your goals with AI. Now, I want you to have two different goals here. I want you to have a primary goal that is more so how would you describe it? Not doesn't have like any sort of percentage tied to it, any sort of like major benchmark. It's more so of like,
yeah.
all right, I want this to make my life easier. I want to get some time back. Those are the type of goals that I want for the first goal. But I want the second goal to be more concrete. Something like increase productivity by 20%. Or it could be, I want to say 2 hours per day using AI. I want you to try to come up with some goals that are going to be making sense for your business that are not too out there. Let's start small, and then as we recognize how we can use these tools and how much of a benefit they're going to be, then we can continuously look to build out those goals even more from there. And this is something that we're also
Mhm.
going to be touching on in our next session about setting your own goals and building out these goals when it comes to using AI. So keep that in mind. The next goal is I want you to pick and play with one new tool that isn't ChatGPT. We showed you 6 today. We gave you a vetting process as well. So go out, search around, find one new tool, play around with it, and then in the next session, you're going to report back to us so that we have everything that, or you guys have the next touching point of how you're going to continue to grow past just ChatGPT. And then the last one for you guys, which is bleeding into our last session, is to think of one task or workflow that you are sitting there that you're just like, ugh, I hate doing this thing. I hate it. This is annoying, or maybe it's just cumbersome. It takes too much time. It's tedious. Think of one thing that you would like to be able to hand off to AI and say, all right, dude, you take it, you go do it, and then you come back to me. Something that you can automate,
Mhm.
basically, is the idea here. So think of
Yeah.
your workflows, think of where it could potentially help out. And then in the next session, we're going to be detailing all of that out, how what the automations actually look like, how to build out your own, all of that fun stuff. You guys will be building your own automation. But I just want you to keep in mind that in the back of your head. All right, well, how could I potentially use this as we're going into that session?
All right.
Awesome. I think we're good here. I appreciate everybody showing up. Do your homework, and we'll talk next week.